Story Circle. The Lectorate of Social Justice and Diversity in the Arts has embraced the Story Circle method as a core methodology of unearthing and sharing knowledge. The Story Circle is a method that was developed by John O'Neill during the Civil Rights Movement in the U.S. as a means to bring communities together. John O'Neill, a theater maker and co-founder of the Free Southern Theater, devised a very simple yet effective method to get different people to share stories and really connect with each other. The Lectorate of Social Justice and Diversity in the Arts has embraced the Story Circle method as it seemed to align seamlessly with the principles of the Lectorate. 3 members of the research team, Aminata Cairo, Camiël Kesser, and Tayfun Balçik, added their own expertise to fine-tune the method specifically. Camiël, our podcast maker, has a knack for asking the right questions to engage people. Tayfun, in his turn, has experience facilitating peace dialogues. Aminata specializes in facilitating difficult conversations where difficult emotions are not avoided. The Story Circle method, as designed by John O'Neill, is pretty straightforward. People sit in a circle. Each person gets a specific amount of time to share a story based on a given prompt. 3 minutes is generally a good time. An example of a prompt may be, share a story about something that makes you proud about your community. Each person shares their story uninterrupted. When the speaker has 1 minute left, the facilitator raises one finger to indicate the time. Listening is more important than speaking, as listening allows for the connection with one's own and each other's stories. The facilitator signals when the time is up. People are allowed to pass. After everybody has shared, participants are invited to respond to what they have heard. As the facilitator guides the shared responses, the stories become interwoven with each other. For the Lectorate, Cairo, Kesser, and Balçik promote different variations on the single circle. Because of the nature and context of our stories, we pay particular attention to the role of embodiment and the role of the facilitator. We are aware that the sharing and ingesting of stories may do something to people on a physical and visceral level, especially given the difficulty of the conversation at times. As a result, we make choices about how we structure the environment, and we require a certain level of sensitivity and being in tune by the facilitator. We thus pay attention to what happens to the body in the space, but also what happens to the body during the story sharing process, so we can be ready to respond. We utilize 3 variations: the single circle, the semicircle, and the double circle. The single circle. When we use the single circle method, all participants sit in a circle, and we generally have the facilitator walk around the circle so they can oversee and tune into what is happening, but also to discourage participants from wanting to talk to the facilitator rather than to each other. The semicircle. We have used the semicircle in situations where we know that the subject matter can be extremely sensitive. The semicircle setup allows participants to see each other, but also allows them to focus on the facilitator rather than each other. The double circle. We also use the double circle method, where the inner circle gets to share and the outer circle gets to respond and reflect. All the while, the facilitator walks around the double circle and pays attention to the dynamics in the group. Facilitating the story circle requires a certain level of sensitivity and flexibility. It is not enough to just let the stories rise. The facilitator is at all times responsible for the well-being of the whole group. The facilitator thus constantly has to pay attention to relationship dynamics and internal processes, which might be revealed in body language. The facilitator encouraged the participants to just trust what comes up. Generally, a set of pre-selected prompts is chosen to stimulate the stories. However, we tend to use the prompts in service of the story sharing. We pay attention to what is brought up and the emotional loading it may carry. We might then adapt the prompts accordingly. We want to encourage you to use the story circle, to create your own circles, to get people to connect and share. We also want to encourage you to take the role of embodiment and facilitating very seriously. Learn how to pick up on physical cues of the participants and your own. Decide on the best format for your group and purpose. Have your prompts ready, but always be flexible to adjust as needed. We wish you great success.